the click here. Good afternoon. It is really a pleasure for me to be back here, well, in Serbia. First time I came was 40 years ago when this was Yugoslavia, and I had a fantastic time, and I love coming back, so it really is a pleasure. I have actually a picture of what was Yugoslavia before, also Montenegro. But anyway, I'm going to talk about the future and the incredible things we are going to see in the next few years, beginning with my favorite theme, which is immortality, which was impossible before, but it is getting closer and closer. In the morning, people were talking about taxes. And you know this very famous phrase by Benjamin Franklin? He said there are only two things certain in life, death and taxes. And I think he was wrong, not once, but twice. Because I don't like taxes, and I like death even less. And I think we are moving closer to the death of death. My family is Spanish, but they moved from Spain when Spain was poor and a dictatorship, Francisco Franco, a fascist dictator, and they moved to Venezuela, which means Piccola Venezia. Venezuela means small Venice. Sadly now, it's sinking like the real Venice. But anyway, it's a beautiful place with beautiful people. I work with the mayor of Caracas, Irene Sáenz Conde. She ran for president of Venezuela, and I was her energy advisor, which is like the second most important position in Venezuela as a petroleum country. Unfortunately, in the last free election of Venezuela in 1998, it was not the beauty who won. She was Miss Universe 1980 and mayor of Caracas in 1998, but not the beauty won, but the beast. And that is why, 9 million Venezuelans have left Venezuela. A quarter of the population has left the country. But anyway, I'm not going to talk about politics, don't worry. I'm going to talk about the future and technology. When Venezuela was wealthy and rich, all the students got a scholarship. So I went to MIT, to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I got my bachelor's, my master's, and half of my PhD at MIT, working on energy, which was my first job. But now I'm working on biotechnology and longevity. And also, I lead with the Millennium Project, which began as the futuristic part of the United Nations. The Millennium Project for Ibero-America, Spain, Portugal, and Latin America, and we look at the trends, the global challenges, and we publish books about the future, like this one about the year 2050 that you can download with 3 scenarios about the year 2050, or this one about Latin America for the year 2030 that I had the pleasure to present in the World Economic Forum, Davos in Switzerland, and talk to really fantastic people like the Nobel Prize in Literature, Mario Vargas Llosa, and also Donald Trump. Actually, I have been with Donald Trump twice on TV. It was really interesting talking with Donald Trump and the things, how he sees the world. Anyway, in 2009, we founded a new university in Silicon Valley called Singularity University by 2 MIT colleagues, Ray Kurzweil and Peter Diamandis, in 2009. And it began at NASA in Silicon Valley, in Mountain View, with the support of Google and other companies. And the idea is to talk about the future and what we call the singularity, that we expect to happen by the year 2045, as it has been reported in most media. And by 2045, we believe we will reach the singularity and immortality. As you can see in Time magazine, 2045, the year man becomes immortal. But for ladies here, don't worry. Ladies will also become immortal. All of us will become immortal. This is based on exponential technologies advancing incredibly fast. In fact, the idea of the singularity is that technology advances and doubles its power every 2 years, every 2 years, every 2 years, incredibly fast. And this is continuing. And as Ray Kurzweil from MIT says, we are going to hit this point in 2045 when artificial intelligence will be superior to all human intelligence combined. But that will also give us immortality, so don't worry, it is not bad. But let me tell you what is happening in the world. If we look at the population of the planet since the year 1800, it grew slowly, until the 20th century. In the 20th century, there was an incredible growth of the population that is now leveling off. Actually, there is not going to be overpopulation. The population of the planet is reaching stability in 20 to 30 years. So it is not true that we have too many people, that it is the end of the world. Not so. The population is stabilizing all over the planet. In fact, in China, began declining last year. Last year, China loses 3 Serbias per year. Every year, 3 Serbias disappear in China because there is a very fast decline in population in China. What is good, though, is that economics keeps on growing. Until the 18th century, world income, GDP per capita, was very low. It was about $1,000 per person per year, very low. And then, after the year 1800, the Industrial Revolution began. And look at the vertical scale, which is exponential. An exponential growth in economics. This has never been seen in history. Thanks to the Industrial Revolution, since the beginning of the 18th, 19th century, there is an exponential growth, and all over the planet. You can see this even more clearly in the stock exchanges, long term. This is the New York Dow Jones Index of industrial companies, and look at an incredible exponential growth over 2 centuries. With wars, with pandemics, with anything, exponential growth in economics. And again, this began with the Industrial Revolution in the United Kingdom. That was the first country in history that doubled its income per capita in a systematic way. And it took 58 years to double its income per capita. Then the USA did it quickly in 47. Today, the world record is China. China, every 7, 8, 9 years, doubles its income per capita. This is fantastic. Today, there is no excuse to be poor. No excuse, because we know what works in economics. So the example is actually being replicated throughout the planet. And again, it began with the Industrial Revolution. Until the 18th century, we were in the Malthusian trap, in this trap of Robert Malthus, the British economist, who said that there was no growth because there were too many people and too few resources. But actually, people are good, not bad, because people come with brains. Brains are the most complex structures in the known universe. So it is better to have more brains, not less brains. And so the economy in the 19th century grew 100%. In the 20th century, almost 400%. And in this century, I think it's going to grow 3,000%, 4,000%. We do not know yet, but it is an incredible growth. Thanks to technologies that are growing exponentially faster, things are becoming smaller, cheaper, and better. So when we talk about exponential change, we normally don't understand because we think linearly. We are linear thinkers, but technology is changing exponentially. If I give, for example, 30 linear steps, each step of 1 meter, 1 meter, 1 meter, after 30 meters, I have walked 30 steps, 30 meters, right? But if I walk exponentially and I double, after 30 doublings, I have walked over 1 billion meters and gone around planet Earth 26 times. This is hard for us to comprehend because we think linearly, but technology is changing exponentially, and all technologies. And also now, life expectancy is changing exponentially. At the time of the Roman Empire, life expectancy in the capital, in Rome, was 25 years. In peripheric areas, like here in the Balkans, it is estimated to have been 20 years of age. Life expectancy. It is true that that's because most people die as children. But anyway, it was very low. 20 years per person life expectancy here in the Balkans. I would have been dead 3 times over. And I am not dead. And I don't plan to die because we have not only more people, we have more education. What has grown more and more is the red area, which is education. So of course we keep on sleeping and we keep on working, but now we have other activities like leisure, and we have more and more education, which is what is changing the world. In fact, most of the knowledge in the planet has been in the last few years. So in the previous part of history, human history, it has almost no advance, no discoveries, but in the last few decades we have discovered incredible things. However, there are always people who oppose technology. When the Industrial Revolution began 2 centuries ago in England, there were the Luddites. The Luddites destroyed the machines because they said that the machines would take away our jobs. Horrible. Fortunately, it was not the Luddites who won, but the machines. And because of the machines, we are living in such an advanced world today. So the Luddites were against technology, like the Amish. I'm pretty sure most of you have heard about the Amish. They left Europe, mostly England and the Netherlands, in the 18th century. And they don't want any technology after the 18th century. I don't know what is special about the 18th century, but they don't have cars, they don't have internet, they don't like planes, they don't like any of the things that we have in the modern world. And that is, to me, very ridiculous, because why stop in the 18th century? Why not the 12th century or the time of the Roman Empire? In fact, in Latin America, there is one tribe called the Yanomamis. The Yanomamis don't want any technology ever. They don't even want clothes. They don't want to speak Spanish or Portuguese. They want to live like they have been living for thousands and thousands of years. At least to me, they are more consistent than the Amish, because the Amish stopped at the 18th century. These people have never adopted technology. If we keep on going back into the past, probably 5,000 years ago, there were the anti-wheel people who didn't want wheels. They didn't want wheels technology. So anyway, to counter all this neo-Luddism, remember the Luddites? So we now say the neo-Luddites, the neo-Luddism. We created Singularity University in California to talk about the exponential advances of technology. If we go further back in time, 40 years ago, when I went to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, I used this primitive technology. This is how we did computer science. These are the famous IBM punch cards. There were different sizes. This is normal, 10 by 100. How much is 10 by 100? There must be CFOs here, right? So 1,000. So this is 1K of memory, just 1K. I used this at university 40 years ago, 1K. And we had to make little holes. We spent the nights making holes. So 1K 40 years ago, and we could not erase this, because once you made holes, you could not change it. So the first electromagnetic memories were created. This is an original also 40 years ago, and it was also 1K of memory. 1K, but this was electromagnetic, and you could erase. You could erase this. But it was 1K. 1K mechanical. And we say K in Spanish, not K. So 1K mechanical and 1K electromagnetic makes 1 kaka. 1 kaka. 40 years ago, we used kaka. This is the amount of computing power we had, kaka. Fortunately, this advanced, and from 1 kaka, we went to, do you remember how much was this? 512 kakas. 1.4 mega is this. You skipped one generation. Okay, this was 512 kakas. This is 1.4 mega. And here I have a pen drive of 1 terabyte. 1 terabyte. Since I began university, we went from kaka to terabytes. What do you think is going to happen in the next 20 years? because this has not stopped. This continues advancing exponentially. So in 20 years, we are going to have smaller devices than this in our brains, connected to our brains. And this will be caca. 1 terabyte will be caca in 20 years. Now this is being used in medicine and biology. The Human Genome Project began in 1990, and it finished in 2003. And it cost over $1 billion to sequence the first human genome. Over $1 billion, 13 years. Today, you can sequence the whole human genome for about $100 in an hour or more. So this is incredible. This is more incredible than caca. This is moving faster. Biology and medicine is moving faster than computers. This is an incredible exponential, twice. Exponential in time, from 13 years to 1 hour, and exponential in cost, from billions of dollars to $100. And this has not stopped. This will continue. All of you will sequence your genome for less than $10 in 1 minute very soon, in the next few years. I have sequenced my genome, complete and partially. I will only show the partial sequence of my genome so that you don't know everything about me. But if you look at my partial sequence, you will see which are the risk I will have, the diseases I will have, the probability that I have celiac disease, cancer, whatever. Isn't this interesting to know what you will die of? So that you don't die of that. Because the medicine of the future will not be curative. The medicine of the future will be preventive. We are going to prevent all diseases thanks to technology. Also, once you sequence your genome, you will know where you come from. This is my paternal line in the last few centuries. So you can see paternal line. And famous people related to my father, Genghis Khan. So no one messed around with me. On my father's side, as you can see, obviously he was from Spain, as I mentioned, but I have people like Genghis Khan from Asia, from Mongolia. Now, I will show you my mother's line. So on my mother's side, also from Spain, but I have a little bit of France, all the way up to Sweden. And famous people, Marie Antoinette. So I have a very good pedigree between Genghis Khan and Marie Antoinette. All of you will know where you come from once you sequence your genome, and you will verify for the first time if your father is really your father. But more interesting than looking into the past is looking into the future, because the future is where we are going to be. And I did an experiment with my students at Singularity University where we shared genes. This is a theoretical experiment to see how our children could be sharing genes, and then select the genes that you want for your children. This will be a standard in 5 to 10 years. Actually, none of us were designed. All of us are here by mistake. We were not designed, but in 10 years, we will design our children. And after all, the human genome is only 3 gigabytes of data. All of us have only 3 gigabytes of data. This pen drive is 1 terabyte. 1 terabyte is 1,000 gigabytes. 1,000 gigabytes. So how many humans can I fit in this pen drive? 333 humans and a little dog. So you see, the human genome, our biology, is not complicated. We are just 3 gigabytes of data. And now we began reading the genome. But what do you do after you know how to read? You begin writing. And now scientists are beginning to write genomes. The first genome written was for a virus in the year 2000. But viruses are small. They have a small number of nucleotides. If you remember biology, adenine, guanine, cytosine, there are only 4 bases. Anyway, so in 2010, scientists created bacteria, artificial bacteria, and by 2045, we will get to 3 gigabytes of data for a human. So we are close to be able to write, rewrite, modify human genomes. So to go into the future, normally we talk about 4 ways to think about the future. The worst way is to be passive like an ostrich. So you suffer the future. You don't want to know. You hide your head in the ground. Horrible. I hope that we don't have any ostriches here. It is better to be reactive, like a firefighter that responds to emergencies, but it is better to be proactive when you buy insurance to prepare for any problem. But the best way is to be proactive, because we can create the future. We can imagine good and bad scenarios and prepare for those. So ostriches are not from the Balkans, so I don't expect to see any ostriches, but if we have ostriches, they should be technological ostriches to see what the future will bring. At Singularity University, we always talked about exponential technology and disruption. And we said, Uber yourself before you get Kodak. We need to make the disruption ourselves, or we will be disrupted. All industries are being disrupted. You can see transportation. Taxi companies are small compared to Uber around the world. Or media, Facebook, retailer, Alibaba and Amazon, hotels, Airbnb, etc., etc., etc. All industries are being disrupted. And to talk about the future, I like also science fiction. In fact, I got one of the fortune cookies. I don't know if you tried those fortune cookies. This was very nice outside. I got a fortune cookie talking about science fiction. Because futurists, we say that the science fiction of today is the science reality of tomorrow. And one of the greatest science fiction writers, Sir Arthur C. Clarke, who wrote Space Odyssey 2001 and many other books and then movies in Hollywood, I visited him in Sri Lanka before he died. He wrote the 3 laws of the future. First law of the future. When a famous scientist says that something is possible, he's probably right. But when he says it is impossible, he's probably wrong. Second law of the future. The only way of discovering the limits of the future is to go past those limits into the impossible. And third law. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So we are going to see magic in the next 10, 20 years. And if it does not look like magic, it is not advanced technology. So what has happened? Since I used Kaka 40 years ago, remember Kaka? I used this Kaka, but then actually my first thesis at MIT 40 years ago was on a typewriter. I don't know if you have seen that primitive technology, that Kaka technology. Well, today we don't use typewriters, we have computers, and then mobile phones, and then big information technology companies, Google, Facebook, and many more. But what we will see in the future? We will see magic. We will see magic. And one of the most magical things is immortality, which has been the biggest dream of humanity since the beginning. The first book ever written by humans in Mesopotamia, the Epic of Gilgamesh, is about immortality 5,000 years ago. The second book, written in Egypt 4,000 years ago, is about immortality, the Book of the Dead. The Chinese emperor, over 2,000 years ago, that reunified China, Qin Shi Huang, he built the terracotta army to live forever. Of course, he did not have technology. When the Spanish went to America, they were looking for the fountain of eternal youth. All civilizations, Chinese, Mesopotamians, Spanish, Egyptians, were looking for immortality. All religions also are looking for immortality. All religions talk about immortality. Like in the Bible, the last enemy that shall be destroyed is death. Unfortunately, also with religions, we did not have technology. We did not have the technology that we have today. Also, we are just coming from the biggest, latest pandemic in this century, COVID. All of us saw the world paralyzed for almost 2 years. The whole planet has never been paralyzed 2 years like that. Never, ever. Not even with World War I or World War II. The whole planet, Africa, Latin America, India, this has never happened before for COVID. And if you look at what were the causes of death by COVID, the number one risk factor is your age. Your age is the number one risk factor. And COVID, that was a horrible pandemic, actually killed between 10 and 20 million people. That's a lot of people, right? But that is nothing in historic terms, nothing. The biggest pandemic in the planet was in the Middle Age, the bubonic plague, the Black Death. It killed 1 out of every 3 Europeans. 1 out of every 3 people in Europe died because of the Black Plague. So what is this COVID thing? COVID is a caca pandemic. COVID is nothing compared to the Black Death. Absolutely nothing. It has killed 0.001. Black Death killed 33% of the Europeans. That is a big pandemic, not this tiny caca pandemic. Also, smallpox, over 56 million, or the Spanish flu. By the way, the Spanish flu was not Spanish, and it was not the flu. But anyway, it killed between 40 and 50 million people over a century ago. That is today over 200 million people. Or AIDS. AIDS now is close to 40 million people dying because of AIDS. 40 million. So what is COVID? COVID is a little caca pandemic. However, for the first time, paralyzed the world and made us realize that there is nothing more important than our health, than our life. If we look at all diseases, all chronic diseases, the number one risk factor is your age. Age. For influenza, for cancer, for heart attacks, for Alzheimer's disease. All chronic diseases, number one risk factor is your age. It's not smoking, it's not drinking, it's not the Russians or the Americans or the Chinese or the Martians. No, the number one cause of death is age. Age is the big problem. Age is the elephant in the room. So now scientists are beginning to realize that diseases are not separate, but that they all rely on the big mother of all chronic diseases, which is aging. And that we have to change our system from this sick care system that we have today, which is a reactive system, into a proactive system of health care. So 5 years ago, my fantastic co-author, David Good, who studied at Cambridge, England, and who created the first smart operating system. He created for Nokia telephones, I forgot the name now. Symbian, thank you. Symbian, he created Symbian. Look at our ties, by the way. We have the same tie with the book. He created Symbian, and then 6 years ago, he also was writing a book about the biggest problem of humanity, that I repeat, was not climate change, was not terrorism, was not the Chinese, was not the Martians. The big problem is aging. So we wrote this book, The Death of Death, that immediately became a bestseller in Spanish, the original language. This is having a problem here changing. You know, technology is fantastic until it fails. By the way, I don't know if you know, in Spain, okay, you came back. In Spain, we lost electricity for a whole day. That was incredible. First time I see that. A whole day without electricity. No internet, no telephones, no street lights, nothing. And we didn't know when it was going to end. Anyway, so it has ended. And the book came as bestseller #1 in paper, #5 in Kindle. And we are donating all the money to two foundations. One foundation in the USA, the Sense Research Foundation, which is the biggest foundation on anti-aging in the USA, and to one foundation in Spain, because I live in Madrid. So anyway, the book has become a bestseller in the three most important languages, Spanish, English, Chinese, and you might recognize some of these languages. In German, they changed the name. In German, it is the victory over death, because the Germans are desperate for a victory. They have lost all the words in 2 centuries, so they want a victory. If you understand Bulgarian, this is like the end of death. And in Russia, it's a mega bestseller. Actually, it was last year in Sochi with the vice president of Russia presenting my book. And you can read the name, Death Must Die. This is Russian style. Death must die. Anyway, so the book is in many languages, especially in China. China, as I mentioned, has reached peak population last year, 1.4 billion, and now it's beginning to decline. And every year they lose 3 Serbias, 4 Serbias soon. It's horrible. There is an implosion, not explosion, implosion. But the same is happening in China and in Korea. China, Japan, and Korea will not exist in 2 centuries if this trend continues. They will disappear. You can see actually China, this is by the end of the century. China will be number 3 with less than half the population than now. And then India will be the most populous country. Still not as populous as it is today, but it will be number 1, and then Nigeria. Anyway, these things will not happen because we will stop aging. But if we didn't stop aging, the future of the world is extinction. My friend Ray Kurzweil talks about this in his book, The Singularity is Near, and he talks about 2 magical dates, and he ratified in the continuation, which is called the singularity is nearer. Remember, the singularity is expected by the year 2045, which is the time when artificial superintelligence is superior to all humans combined in the planet. If you are following up what is happening with ChatGPT, this might happen earlier. But anyway, we are conservative, so we think by 2045. And also, we will reach immortality. The human brain evolved from other animals. Fish are basically the first ones that have kind of small brains, then reptiles, then mammals. And within mammals, little tiny brains with mice and rats. And then the biggest brain in terms of body size is the human brain. Of course, whales have bigger brains and elephants, but they have a bigger body size and body mass. So anyway, the brain kept on evolving, and today we know the brain has 3 parts. Fish and reptiles, they have the reptilian brain, which is primitive brain of instincts at the center. Then we have the limbic brain for the first kind of emotions. And then we have the neocortex, which is very big in humans, which give us intelligence. Now we are talking about an exocortex that will give us super intelligence. As Elon Musk is trying to do with Neuralink, connect our brains to the cloud. In 10 years, most people will have direct access to internet from their brains. And this is going to be incredible. And as Elon Musk says, this is happening. Artificial intelligence is coming. And artificial intelligence will be superior to human intelligence. So, if you can't beat your enemy, join it. There is no way humans with artificial intelligence will compete with humans with artificial intelligence. There is no way CFOs without artificial intelligence will compete with CFOs with artificial intelligence. So again, if you cannot beat your enemy, join it. And this is what will happen. But what is the complexity of the brain that I mentioned is the most complex structure in the known universe today? Maybe tomorrow we find Martians, and Martians have bigger brains. But until we see Martians or other extraterrestrials, there is nothing that we know of more complex than the human brain. which basically has 10 to the 11 neurons. Each neuron has about 1,000 connections, and each synapses computes at about 1,000 computations per second. That gives that a brain is a machine, equivalent of a machine, of 10 to the 17 operations per second. Of course, that is if we don't talk about the mind, the spirit, and the soul. And I love to talk about the mind, the spirit, and the soul, but only after 3 shots of vodka. You need vodka to talk about the mind, the spirit, and the soul. Robots are incredible. I invited to Madrid this very sophisticated robot. She was given actually citizenship in a country. She's a very humanoid robot called Sophia. You can check Sophia. Sophia read my book in 1 second. How many of you can read my book in 1 second? But she read it in Spanish, in Chinese, and in English in 1 second. And not only that, she answered questions better than me about the book. It's incredible. We cannot compete with this artificial intelligence. That is why we have to join it. And this is the most incredible thing. Do you want to be with intelligent people or with stupid people? Do you want to have intelligent children or stupid children? Do you want to be more intelligent or more stupid? I think the answer is clear. We want to be more intelligent. And if we can be more intelligent with natural intelligence, with a little help of artificial intelligence, what will you do? Join artificial intelligence, because there is no way a human with artificial intelligence can compete with a human with artificial intelligence. And again, it's going to be good. It's going to be better than human intelligence. And you can see how robots are evolving. And not just Asimov that was stopped, but many robots are coming with more movements than humans and with emotions. At MIT, in the media lab of MIT, they are beginning to understand the feelings of robots. Robots will have feelings. And they will be fantastic, absolutely fantastic, gorgeous. For women too, you will have your fantastic macho robots. With one advantage, one big advantage, they will not get tired at night. But in the West, we think that robots are bad. You know, Terminator. Actually, robot is a word from the Czech language. Robot means like slave work in Czech. So in the West, it is bad. Robots are bad. Even female robots are bad. Also, when they have robot sex, they are bad. But are robots good or are robots bad? It depends on where you are. If you are in Japan, I lived 3 years in Tokyo. If you are in Japan, if you are in China, if you are in Korea, you know that robots are good. In fact, robots are better than humans. When a human has a problem, who saves the human? The robot. There have been already several Japanese and Chinese that have married robots. I don't know how they do it, but anyway, it is a fact. So let me tell you something why the Chinese, Japanese, Koreans like robots. It's like dragons. Dragons in the West are bad. Dragons eat people, destroy cities, throw fire. They are bad. Where are dragons good? In China, in Japan, in Korea. In fact, the dragon is the symbol of the emperors of China and Japan. So you see, what we think is bad here is good there. So robots are good in Asia. All the Japanese companies are making all kinds of robots. But again, this is not robots versus humans. This is humans and robots. We are merging in a new civilization. As my professor at MIT, Marvin Minsky, who was one of the fathers of artificial intelligence, he answered, will robots inherit the earth? And he said, yes. But they will be us. We will be them. We are merging with the machines. And again, there is really no choice. There is really no choice. If you cannot beat your enemy, join it. So, to finish with the most incredible dream of humanity besides artificial intelligence is immortality. In the last few years, we are beginning to consider that aging is a disease, but a curable disease. That is the important thing, curable. And that in the next 20 years, We will cure aging, and we will make death optional. In fact, let me tell you what has happened in the last 20 years. In the last 20 years, we have doubled the lifespan of mice. We have mice that live the equivalent of 200 human years. Mice live like 2 years, 2.5, and we have mice that live 5 years, which is 200 human years. We have mosquitoes that live 4 times, like 400 human years, and we have worms that live 1,000 human years equivalent. Do you think that scientists make these worms Methuselah worms? They are called Methuselah worms because they live 1,000 years equivalent because they like the worms? No, they do it to apply on humans. In fact, it has been discovered in the last decades that there are immortal cells already. This was discovered with a patient who died of cancer called Henrietta Lacks. Incredible story. She died at age 31. She was born in 1920. She died in 1951. She died of a huge cervical cancer. It was like an orange. The doctors took the cervical cancer and they analyzed it. And they saw that the cancer could grow if it had food. Any kind of nutritious component, the cancer grew. Well, that cancer is alive today. She died because the cancer grew back in her for 2 times, and the doctors, if you leave one cancer cell, what happens? The cancer comes back. Why does it come back? Because cancer doesn't age. Cancer doesn't die. Cancer discovered immortality. Cancer cells are called biologically immortal. They do not age. So this is incredible. How many of you knew that cancer cells discovered immortality? And this was in 1951. It was not yesterday. We know since 1951 that cancer cells discovered immortality. And cancer cells didn't go to university. Cancer cells don't even know how to read. And they discovered immortality. And cancer cells didn't spend €1. And they discovered immortality. So, do you think immortality is complex? Or that immortality is expensive? No. And the proof is cancer that has done it. But cancer is bad. I agree. Cancer is bad. However, the best cells in the body, which are the germ cells for reproduction, which are not only good, are the best cells. They are the ones for the continuation of a species. They are also biologically immortal. The germ cells that we have in our bodies do not age. But we are basically somatic cells. 99.9% of us is somatic, soma, body in Greek, somatic cells. And somatic cells age. So when the body ages, our germ cells that do not age also die when the body dies. The same with cancer, by the way. Cancer cells are immortal if the body doesn't die or if you take them out of the body. But if you leave them in the body, basically the cancer eats the body and then the person dies and the cancer inside dies as well. But cancer cells do not age and germ cells do not age. But not only good cells like germ cells don't age. Today we know there are many small organisms like hydras that are also biologically immortal. I say theoretically because, of course, if a piano comes on my head, falls on my head, I will die even if I stop aging. The same with these hydras and some jellyfish. They do not age, but that doesn't mean that they are immortal. They can always die from a rock, from a predator, another animal, or through a disease. But we know immortality already exists. That is why it is not so difficult now to understand why we are going to reach immortality, because it already exists. In fact, it was the creation of nature. It was the start of life in the planet. 4 billion years ago, the first bacteria appeared. These bacteria had circular chromosomes with no beginning and no end. Our chromosomes, as you know, are like X and Y. And our chromosomes have tips which are called the telomeres. Those telomeres divide and divide until they get so short they cannot divide anymore and the cell dies. In cancer cells and in germ cells, those telomeres grow continuously. Or in the first bacteria in the planet, these bacteria had no telomeres because they had circular chromosomes. So the mother bacteria was exactly equal to the daughter bacteria, and they did not age. There was no aging in the planet for 3 billion years. Biologically speaking, life appeared to live, not to die. And for over 3 billion years, there was no aging in bacteria. Anyway, all of these ideas have been presented by my friend Aubrey de Grey of the foundation Sense, that I am donating half of the royalties, the book rights, to his foundation. He was called a charlatan by my university. MIT Technology Review, the best magazine in engineering, called him a charlatan in 2005. In 2019, they asked for forgiveness. And they had this in the cover of the same magazine from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Old age is over, if you want it. This is an incredible change of paradigm. From my university, I feel ashamed that he was called a charlatan by MIT. And then, at least, they asked for forgiveness. Why does this happen? As the German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer explains, all truth goes through 3 stages. In the first stage, it is ridiculed. In the second stage, it is attacked violently. And in the third stage, it is accepted as evident. I want all of you to remember today, 2025, to remember this horrible day when we accepted death. We should not accept death. I am a total war against death, because death is killing all of us. And we are very close to kill death. So we have to revolt against aging and death. And to take pictures today, and to look at those pictures in 2045. Because in 2045, we are going to be younger than today. Remember that. We are going to be younger, because what we are working is on rejuvenation, to reverse the aging process. As my friend Ray Kurzweil explains in his book, Fantastic Voyage, Live Long Enough to Live Forever, he talks about the 3 bridges to immortality. So this is happening really, really fast. All companies in Silicon Valley, I lived 5 years in Silicon Valley in California, are talking about solving death. Death is a technical problem. And Google says, we are going to solve death. Death is just a technical problem, and it will have a technical solution. They created a company called Calico, California Life Company, with the goal of curing death. Also, Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, Priscilla Chan, who is a medical doctor, who studied biology at Harvard. They met at Harvard as students, and a medical doctors. They created a foundation to solve all diseases in this generation, including the mother of all of diseases, which is aging. And I was in San Francisco when he announced this, the most incredible thing I have seen. Mark Zuckerberg and his medical doctor wife, Priscilla Chan, announcing the creation to solve all diseases. And the foundation was created for their first daughter, which is called Maxima. And they said that their daughter will not die of aging. How many parents can say that their daughter will not die of aging? She might die of a broken heart or some other condition, an accident, but she will not die of aging, because we are going to solve aging. But not only, as I mentioned, Google or Facebook or Microsoft. Microsoft says that we are also going to solve aging now that we have sequenced the genome, or Apple. Tim Cook has said that Apple will be remembered not by the iPhones or the Macintosh. No, they will be remembered by what they are starting to do in health. And the wealthiest man in the planet, Jeff Bezos with Elon Musk, they compete all the time depending on the value of Tesla and the value of Amazon. He has created a company called Altos Labs, to reverse aging. And with a Russian, Israeli, American investor, Yuri Milner, very famous Yuri Milner, they put $3 billion to reverse aging. Anti-aging will be the biggest industry in the world in the next few years. It will create over $8 trillion per year. And that is why all the big companies, as I mentioned, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, they are all moving into longevity. I don't know what you do, and I don't care. If you are not into longevity, you are not into the future, and you will die. So change, and move into longevity. Again, this will be the biggest industry ever seen in the planet. Nothing will compare to the longevity industry, because all of us are dying, all of us. And we need to cure aging. This industry began just about 10 years ago in millions of dollars. Right now it's reaching billions, and in the next 2 decades it will be trillions of dollars. This is growing exponentially. I was a few months ago with my friend Peter Diamandis, who is co-founder of Singularity University, in Saudi Arabia, for the biggest prize in history, the announcement of a 101 million X Prize. His foundation is called X Prize Foundation, financed by Saudi Arabia, by the Evolution Foundation, that by the end of 2030, we will have therapies for biological rejuvenation of at least 10 years. We will be rejuvenated at least 10 years. So again, the X Prize Foundation, together with Evolution, they are financing for people in the ages between 65 and 80, 10 years rejuvenation, at least in basically the most important biological system. And in 2012, the scientist Shinya Yamanaka got the Nobel Prize for, you can see this is the Nobel Foundation page, rejuvenating a cell. He came to Spain 2 years ago. We gave him the Nobel Prize in Medicine of Spain, which is a piece of shit. It's not $1 million, it's 10,000 euros. But anyway, what is important is that Shinya Yamanaka discovered how to rejuvenate a cell. He discovered 4 genes that control the aging process, and those 4 genes can be modified to make the cell young again. Make the cell young again. The Nobel Prize in Chemistry last year was to Google DeepMind, who solved one of the biggest problems in medicine, which is what is called protein folding, how to create proteins. And they are now creating a new company called Isomorphic Labs. This came out just a few weeks ago by the winner of the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for solving the problem of proteins. And now they are working to solve all diseases. This is Google, a subsidiary that got the Nobel Prize in Chemistry, and that we are going to cure all diseases in the next few years. And when I say next few years, we are talking about 10, 20 years. This is not science fiction. And I was with a friend, actually in the Evolution Foundation in Saudi Arabia, as I said, Evolution. By the way, Evolution means health plus evolution. With David Sinclair, who might also get the Nobel Prize. David Sinclair was in the cover magazine of Nature for Turning Back Time. He was the first person, his team at Harvard. He studied at MIT, by the way. He did his postdoc at MIT, and now he's at Harvard. He was the first person who rejuvenated an organ, a complete organ, because Shinya Yamanaka, he only rejuvenated a cell, a single cell. Now, David Sinclair rejuvenated an organ, the eyes of mice. All these experiments normally are done with mice because mice are very close to humans. We share 90% of the genome with a mouse, 90%. All mammals are very close. Anyway, so he took a mouse that was 80 years of age, human years. That means 18 months for a mouse. And who was blind because of the age, 80 years. So the mouse was blind. And so he changed 3 genes in their eyes, and the mice got their eyes of age 20, and they could see again. They recovered their sight after having been blind. This is incredible. And this is the first organ being rejuvenated. Now, scientists are working on rejuvenating other organs, piece by piece, rejuvenating livers, kidneys, lungs, the brain eventually, and also different animals. First, mice. Now they are doing experiments with dogs and with monkeys, because monkeys are almost human. This is absolutely incredible, what we are going to see in the next few years. So I think we are going to cure aging in the next few years. We are going to reverse aging. And for everyone who is less than 70, I think you have the opportunity to become biologically, immortally young. Because no one wants to be immortally old. We are talking about being immortally young. And I want to be young, not with a Russian application like FaceApp, you know? Probably you have played with FaceApp. Well, I don't plan to be young because of FaceApp. I plan to be young because of bioengineering and because we know this is scientific. For the first time in human history, we are close to fulfilling the dream of humanity from the time of Mesopotamia, China, Egypt. So we have to meditate. This is very complex. This is really complex, and this is the biggest dream of humanity. And we have to really think about the future because humans keep on evolving. We are not the end of evolution. We are still evolving in every way, but we have to do this carefully. We don't want to finish like that. Humans have existed very little in the history of the planet. We have existed only for about 200,000 years. 200,000 years since we came out of Africa, out of other monkeys ahead of us, before us. The dinosaurs ruled the planet for 200 million years. 200 million years. And before them, bacteria. Remember the bacteria we talked about? The immortal bacteria? Immortal bacteria lasted 3 billion years. And there might still be some of those immortal bacteria. So don't kill all bacteria. Some are good. Anyway, so this has yin and yang, as the Chinese say. Everything has yin and yang, and it's so complex that yin yang inside has little yin yang, and little yin yang has little yin yang. So we have to meditate. I love Japanese, Chinese thinking, very different from the Western thinking. And the Chinese, they say, let's light up the world. Don't blame darkness. The problem is not this darkness that we are here. The problem is that we need to illuminate the world to light up a candle. By the way, this is an old picture. This was before the blackouts in Spain. Huh? But there is a country that is totally blackout for serious reasons, which is North Korea. I have actually been 20 times to South Korea and once into North Korea. And it's really sad, North Korea. They were once the same country, but North Korea became communist, stayed in the past, and very dark. This is true. Actually, North Korea is the last country in the world still without public internet. There is no public internet in North Korea. Well, in fact, there is no light. Forget about internet when there is no light. So anyway, talking about Chinese philosophy, this is a beautiful Chinese word that means crisis. Crisis in Chinese and Japanese and Korean and Vietnamese, when they use Chinese characters, has two parts. The first part, well, first, I drew it upside down or sideways. Now I know how to write it properly. The first character means danger, but the second character means opportunity. We are living in the most incredible time of human history. We are close to reaching the biggest dream of humanity, immortality. So, you have to read The Death of Death so that you don't die. Or actually, help me to publish it in Serbian. It is in 12 languages. It is in Bulgarian and coming out in Slovenian. So how can it be in Slovenian and not in Serbian? Anyway, I invite you to the two biggest events in longevity. This one, Revolution Against Aging and Death in Las Vegas this year, or in Spain, to the event that organized in the College of Medical Doctors, the most beautiful place, because let me tell you, Madrid has the longest life expectancy of any place in the European Union. These are statistics from Eurostat. It's not from Madrid or from Spain. And this is from last year, actually. Now, Madrid has reached 86.1 years of life expectancy, the biggest in all of the European Union. So, move to Madrid if you want to live longer. And actually, I ran as for the European Parliament, and my campaign is that we need to change the old paradigm. Spain was the country of non plus ultra, because Spain was the end of the Roman Empire. There was nothing far beyond, non plus ultra. But then America was discovered, and the name was changed to plus ultra, which is in the Spanish flag, plus ultra, far beyond. Now my goal is to change the motto of Spain to Vita plus Ultra, life far beyond. And I organized this event in Madrid. We go through the capital, to the government of Madrid, the Comunidad de Madrid, this is me, yelling for immortality. Oh, in fact, here is the balloon. You will get little balloons like this, stop aging in Spanish. We go to the Congress of Spain, stop aging. And now we are looking for a place where to make immortality a reality, which is not in the European Union, because the European Union is full of regulations, and you cannot do many of the therapies. So less than 2 years ago, I was in Montenegro, where we created a community called Susalu that was financed by Vitalik Buterin, who is the creator of the cryptocurrency Ethereum. Actually, he was given Montenegro citizenship, and he was wearing the traditional Montenegro dress in Montenegro. So this was an experiment for 2 months. We gathered almost 1,000 people from around the planet to come to Montenegro and talk about immortality. We have had other experiments, one called Vitalia in Honduras, with the goal of making death optional. Now, this will be like a big Los Alamos, you know, the Manhattan Project for the atomic bomb, but not for atomic bombs, but for longevity. In fact, Brian Johnson, the famous biohacker, he went to this island, and we did some gene therapies that are not allowed in Europe and are not allowed in the USA. So we are looking for a place where we can create the first city of immortality. This will bring millions, billions, maybe trillions of dollars. Remember, this will be the largest industry in the planet in the next few years. So we are looking for a place where to build Viva City and where to build Immortalis. So I have some colleagues here who are trying to help me out with this. We are trying in Montenegro. We would be happy to try here in Serbia, in Croatia, in Bosnia, in Brčko district as well. Yeah, actually we have a member of parliament from Brčko district, so don't laugh. And we have another member of parliament from Bosnia and Herzegovina here, who are my friends. Anyway, so remember, I don't like death and taxes. So the favorite book of the president of Argentina, Javier Milei, is my book, The Death of Death. He is the first libertarian and immortalist president. So I'm trying to convince him to create this immortality city in Argentina. But Argentina is very complicated. And anyway, so I'm trying, because he has said, I repeat, that my book, La Muerte de la Muerte, is his favorite book, the book of the president of Argentina. So I want to basically close now with the beginning. Remember, I don't like taxes, and I don't like death. So this is a very important mistake that Benjamin Franklin did, but he said something good. The following quote, I like it a lot. He said, in wine, there is wisdom. In beer, there is freedom. But in water, there is bacteria. So that's the lesson for today. So, Havala, live long and prosper. I think we have 17 minutes for questions and answers, according to the clock here. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions if someone doesn't want to die. And if you want to die, don't ask questions. So how do we handle that? Oh, these are the questions. Oh, okay. So in the case of immortality caused by the development of artificial intelligence, what will people do for a living? Well, actually, I think that artificial intelligence will make us richer and wealthier, because we will have robots and artificial intelligence doing the jobs we don't want to do. And we will keep on moving in the Maslow pyramid. You know the Maslow pyramid of human needs? You know, 20 years ago, we were in survival needs. And then we kept on moving. We will keep on moving thanks to technology. Why is that so bad? Well, I don't know. But you can try death. I'm not interested in trying. I think life is wonderful. Life is beautiful. And also, if you die, there is probably no turning back, no coming back here. But if someone wants to die, I encourage them to die. So that I divide people in two groups, the deathies and the immortalists. I am, of course, with the immortalists. But the deathies can die. That's okay. That's part of evolution. They will disappear. All the deathies will die. And the immortalists, we will inherit the planet. So you know what to do, where to choose. Okay. What do you think about resurrection? I love religions. Actually, I studied religions. As you saw, I lived also 3 years in Japan, and I have been 5 times in India. So, in Western religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, we basically have resurrection. If you are good, you go to heaven. If you are bad, you go to hell. By the way, someone told me there is a very famous song by a group called the Street Boys. They say, go to heaven for the climate, but to hell for the company. So anyway, I'm a materialistic engineer. I believe in the life here and now. I am not sure if there is a life somewhere else in the future, far away. I don't know. So if we are sure this life is real, I prefer to keep it. So resurrection is fine. Reincarnation, because Eastern religions believe in reincarnation. Hinduism, Buddhism, and other Eastern religions. So anyway, you can believe in that. And there is no rush. If you want to be resurrected, you can die anytime. So why do you have to die in 100 years? You can wait. Anyway, so how do we know we are closer to solving aging that alchemists were to converting metals to gold? Good question. But the answer is artificial intelligence, as you saw. Well, first of all, the genome, if you remember, is only 3 gigabytes. We are not impossible to understand. We are only 3 gigabytes. For artificial intelligence, we are caca. We are caca. We are very simple, 3 gigabytes of biological data. And as I mentioned, many companies, all these companies, Facebook, Google, Apple, Amazon, they are investing in rejuvenation technologies. Jeff Bezos, $3 billion. Saudi Arabia, $20 billion on rejuvenation. Do you think Jeff Bezos puts $3 billion or the Arabs $20 billion because they're crazy? No, because we know that this is a scientific problem. And the Nobel Prize in Medicine discovered that aging is reversible. So aging is reversible, and second, immortality already exists. I explained cancer cells are immortal. In fact, cancer cells are not born immortal, like germ cells. Germ cells are born immortal. They don't age. But cancer cells, they discover how to become immortal. So that is why immortality is not so far away to discover. We are very close to discover. So where are we? How do we know? Okay, anonymous. What forms of immortality you anticipate for humans? How do you comment the rebirth? Oh, the dark wolf. Actually, fantastic. The dark wolf is this white, wild wolf that was extinguished 10,000 years ago. And then my friend, actually, he writes in my book, George Church, who will get the Nobel Prize, he led the Human Genome Project. Remember the Human Genome Project? 13 years, $1 billion. So George Church led that, the Human Genome Project. And now he's in a company called Colossus. Colossus is the first company that has de-extinguished animals. They de-extinguished the dark wolf, and now they are de-extinguishing the mammoth. We will have mammoths in 4 years. I think this is fantastic. This opens the possibilities. It opens up our minds, our dreams. I think it's incredible, fantastic. Anyway, so what will happen to happiness in the future? Beautiful question. I believe that we are going to have 3 super things in the future. Super intelligence, super longevity, and super happiness. I believe we are going to become happier and happier. And you can see it now. Today, we live in the world almost 80 years. In Spain, come to Madrid, 86.1 years. But anyway, in the world, a bit less than 80. At the time of the Roman Empire was 20. And half of your children died, and then you had cavities in your teeth, and you missed a finger, you died of pneumonia when you were 25, horrible. You had no education. You didn't know how to add in the time of the Roman Empire. So I think we are more educated, we are wealthier, we are much more prosperous. We live in a cleaner environment. We now care for the environment. Actually, this is one of the beauties about becoming immortal. Once we become immortal, we will take care of the environment because we are going to be here to enjoy it or to suffer from a dirty environment. So I'm convinced we are going to live in a more environmentally friendly world and in a more peaceful world. In a more peaceful world, immortality will make us more peaceful. But anyway, so many questions. Yes, we will be happier in the future because this is like love. You know, you have to tell your friends, your family, I love you so much more than yesterday, but less than tomorrow. The same with the future and happiness. I think we are going to become happier in the future because we will solve all the basic needs of humanity. There should be no hunger, there should be no poverty in the next 20 years. I forgot to say that we are moving from the economy of scarcity into an economy of abundance. We are producing more and more for less and less. Remember, the income per capita until the 18th century was $1,000 per person per year. That was it, $1,000 per person per year. That is today the monthly salary. We have improved, 12 times. Now, I don't know, but in Serbia it should be at least around that, $1,000 per month per person. And in many places it is already like 5,000 and 6,000. In Luxembourg, the richest country in Europe, it is 10,000 euros per person per month. That is pretty good. Huh? Anyway, so yes, we will be happier. How long do you plan to live? Forever. I mean, what kind of question is that? Do you think I plan to die when I am like Methuselah, 969? If I make it 969, I will make it to 1,000 million years. I mean, why would I want to die? Why would anyone want to die? But anyway, you are free. You are free to die. And if you need help, call me. So, is immortality going to be a choice for everyone? Yes. Immortality will be free. And I'll tell you quickly 2 explanations. We are made of very cheap chemical elements. First of all, we are 70% water. Well, there are some people that are more watery than others. But let's say 65, 70% water. And we are not French Perrier water or Evian water. We are tap water. Tap water. So that it costs maybe €1, our water. And the other 30% that make us is the most common, abundant, and cheap elements in the planet. We are made of carbon, a little bit of sodium, potassium, nitrogen. That is what we are. We are really made of dust. We are dirty water bags. This is what we are. We don't cost €100. So now that we get into nanotechnology, we will cure our dirty water bags, which is what we are, for €1. I mean, immortality will be basically free. And you can think about the COVID vaccines, which were not good or anything bad. COVID vaccines at the end of the day cost the cheapest ones $2 and the most expensive one $20. That will be the cost to be immortal. My forecast, it is in my book, chapter 5. I talk why immortality is not only so close, but it will be for everybody. Who wants it? Who wants it? Because some people will want to die, like the Amish. Remember the Amish? They want to die. Remember the Indians in South America? They don't want any of this technology, so they are free to die. We are not going to force this into anyone. However, I think we can do this also, not only for us, but probably for our pets. People love their dogs. We can make the dogs live longer and longer and longer. Anyway, so yes, for everybody. Who wants it? Who wants it? What about the pharmaceuticals industry if medicine will be preventive? Yeah, there will be a total disruption. It's like the gasoline cars. The gasoline cars are totally being disrupted by electric vehicles. In fact, I came here from Belgrade in an electric vehicle. And I am so happy. This is the future. And these electric vehicles today are caca vehicles. They are really a caca compared to what we are going to have in 5 years. So Yes. Okay. Will people be subjected to testing? And if so, how dangerous will it be for them? Well, first of all, like my friend Brian Johnson, who wrote his famous book and Netflix documentary, Don't Die, the first thing you have to do is don't die. You know, I don't recommend anyone to die, and especially now that we are so close to immortality. So don't do anything stupid. And I've seen people here, and you are actually, many of you are younger than me. So, and I plan to be alive by 2030. In 2030, the biggest prize in human history will be announced, $101 million. And it is not so much money, but there are incredible amount of companies, pharmaceutical companies, participating, hospitals, startups, Jeff Bezos and his combo of billionaires participating. Over 600 teams are participating in this prize. We are going to see magic by the end of 2030. We will have the first therapies to rejuvenate 10 years by December 2030. So please don't die, at least until December 2030. Unless you want to die, and then call me, I'll help you. Okay, if we achieve, if we eliminate this, okay. Don't we also eliminate one of evolution's core mechanisms, natural selection? What kind of stagnant society could that create? This is the argument of Elon Musk. I love Elon Musk, except for that. He says that we need to die to generate new ideas. And that is because he's still relatively young, and he's not like Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos is beginning to feel aging, and he wants to put his money to reverse aging. Also, because he's going to get married again. You know, he wants to be younger, because his wife is younger. Anyway, so no. As I explained, the first life forms in the planet were bacteria that did not age. Life appeared to live. Life did not appear to age. No, life did not appear to die. So when some people say, oh, but this is horrible, what gives meaning to life is death. This is so stupid. This is like saying what gives meaning to marriage is divorce. Isn't that ridiculous? What gives meaning to marriage is marriage. What gives meaning to life is life. That is why the first life forms were immortal. So anyway, but again, you are free. I mean, this kind of discussions, I think, are so stupid. If you think it's good to die, please die. And let's keep on discussing with the ones who don't want to die. Okay, if we achieve immortality, what will happen with overpopulation in the world? Will there be more wars? Well, about the wars, as I explained, no. We are becoming more peaceful and more tolerant. Never in history have we been so tolerant and so peaceful as today? Never in history. A friend of mine who was professor at MIT and now he moved to Harvard, Steve Pinker, Google him, Steve Pinker, he has made analysis from the anthropological times. When we were in the caves, 50,000 years ago, we killed 1 out of every 3 humans. It was like the Black Death. Remember the Black Death? Well, that was humans. We were assassins. We were criminals. We killed anyone who we didn't like. Now we are relatively tolerant people. Even Ukraine, Russia, Palestine, Israel, that is nothing. Nothing in terms of what we did in Europe 100 years ago or 200 years ago. This is the most peaceful time in history. But again, remember, it will only get better. We are going to be more peaceful. The other part, overpopulation, what is that bullshit? Didn't I show you the numbers of China, Japan, and Korea? They will disappear in 200 years unless we stop aging. The population of the world is declining in most of the middle income and wealthy countries. And even in the poor countries, in India and in Africa, it will stabilize in the next 20 years and then will begin declining. And I don't want to talk about Serbia or before Yugoslavia. The population here is declining. And not only because they all go to Germany or somewhere else. It's because people don't have children anymore. People used to have 10 children, out of which 5 died. And a few survive until age 20. Anyway, so overpopulation is false. Malthus actually talked about that it was the end of the world. in the 18th century because there were too many people and too few resources. And that is not true. That is not true. Now that we are more people, we are richer, more educated, and more entertaining. Okay, I think we have time for one more question. The last one, yes, we have 44 seconds. Okay, what will be a business model of firms which will provide super intelligent service for humans? And what will all these super intelligent people do? We will do super intelligent things. So anyway, please don't die. This is the most incredible time to be alive, the most peaceful time in history. And we are between the last mortal generation and the first immortal generation. So, where do you want to be? Thank you very much.